Chapter 19 of the Story of Ancient Irish Civilization. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Jennifer Rutters. The Story of Ancient Irish Civilization by P.W. Joyce. Chapter 19. How they prepared and made up clothing materials. The wool was taken from the sheep, with the shears having 2 blades and 2 handles, much the same as our present head shears. After the shearing, the whole work up to the finished cloth was done by women, except fulling, which was regarded as men's work. The wool, after shearing, was sorted and scoured to remove the grease, and then carded into soft little rolls ready for spinning. Both wool and flax were spun with a distaff and spindle, as in other countries, for the spinning wheel was not invented till the 15th or 16th century. The thread was woven in a hand loom, nearly always by women in their own homes. Ladies of high rank practiced weaving long ornamental scarves as an accomplishment, which they did by means of a long thin lathe, something like our crochet work, as the Greek ladies of old practiced weaving ornamental webs. The woolen cloth was fulled or thickened by men who practiced fulling as a distinct trade. Our records show that linen was manufactured in Ireland from the earliest historic times. It was a very common article of dress, and was worked up and dyed in a great variety of forms and colors, and exported besides to foreign nations, so that the manufacture for which Ulster is famous at the present day is merely an energetic development of an industry whose history is lost in the twilight of antiquity. The flax, after pulling, was tied up in sheaves and dried, after which it was put through various stages of preparation, much like those of the present day. After spinning, the thread was finally wound in balls ready for weaving. The beautiful illumination of the Book of Kells, the Book of MacDurnan, and the numerous old manuscripts proves that the ancient Irish were very skillful in colors, and the art of dyeing was well understood. The dye stuffs were not imported. They were all produced at home, and were considered of great importance. The people understood how to produce various shades by the mixture of different colors, and were acquainted with the use of mordants for fixing the dyes. One of these mordants, alum, is a native product, and was probably known in very early times. Dyeing was what we now call a cottage industry, i.e., the work was always carried on in the house, as I saw it carried on in the homes of Munster more than half a century ago. The cloth was dyed by being boiled with several dye stuffs. The dye stuff for black was a sediment or deposit of an intense black found at the bottom of pools and bogs. A crimson or bright red color was imparted by a plant which required good land and was cultivated in beds like table vegetables, requiring great care. There were several stages of preparation, but the final dye stuff was a sort of meal or coarse flour of a reddish color. The stuff for dyeing blue was obtained from the woad plant, called in Irish Glenosheen, after several stages of preparation, till it was made into cakes fit for use. A beautiful purple was produced from a sort of lichen growing on rocks after careful preparation. A still more splendid purple was obtained from a little shellfish or cockle. This method of obtaining purple was practiced also by the ancient Britons or Welsh, and by the same process was produced the celebrated Tyrian purple in still more distant ages. For sewing, woolen thread was usually employed. Women sewed with a needle furnished with an eye as at present. From an early time needles were made of steel, but in primitive ages of bronze. In those days a steel or bronze needle was difficult to make, so that needles were very expensive. The price of an embroidery needle was an ounce of silver. The old Irish dressmakers were accomplished workers. The sewing on ancient articles of dress found from time to time is generally very neat and uniform. One writer describes the sewing on a fur cape, found in a bog, as wonderfully beautiful and regular. Embroidery was also practiced as a separate art or trade by women. An embroiderer kept for her work, among other materials, thread of various colors, as well as silver thread, and a special needle. The design or pattern to be embroidered was drawn and stamped beforehand by a designer on a piece of leather, which the embroiderer placed lying before her and imitated with her needle. This indicates the refinement and carefulness of the old Irish embroiderers. The art of stamping designs on leather for other purposes as well as for embroidery was carried to great perfection, as we know from the beautiful specimens of book covers preserved in our museums. Ladies of the highest rank practiced needlework and embroidery as an accomplishment and recreation. For this purpose they spun ornamental thread, which, as well as needles, they constantly carried about in a little ornamented handbag. The art of tanning leather, generally with oak bark, was well understood in Ireland. By the process of tanning, the hide was thickened and hardened, as at present. Tanned leather was used for various purposes, one of the principal being as material for shoes. And we know that curraghs or wicker boats were often covered with leather. A jacket of hard, tough, tanned leather was sometimes worn in battle as a protecting corselet. End of chapter 19. Recording by Jennifer Wetters.